Unit 6, Ethics, Track 26.
Most kids love cereals in the morning, but according to a recent report, some breakfast cereals for children are more than 50% sugar by weight. The study, published in the Journal of Nutrition, found that children's cereals have more sugar, salt, carbohydrates and calories per gram than cereals that are not marketed at kids. A single serving of 10 popular cereals, including brands such as Ready to Go by Daybreak, can have as much sugar as a donut. 2 of the brands were found to be more than 50% sugar by weight, while 8 brands were at least 40% sugar. The food industry spends about £145 million annually advertising these cereals to children. Colourful characters and collectible gifts inside the packs are meant to stimulate your child into wanting these fun foods. But the damage they can do to your child's health is no laughing matter. We spoke to Helen Wheatfield, an expert nutritionist from the National Food Council.
Child obesity has become a major concern, with excess sugar and carbohydrates being the 2 main culprits. In our study, we found that most kids usually serve themselves over 50% more than the suggested serving of 30 grams. But we also found 2 cereal brands that scored very well in our nutrition rating. Mini Oats and Barley Bites had only 1 gram of sugar per serving and a healthy 3 grams of fibre.
So, if you don't want your children eating a sugary breakfast, check the nutritional information on the side of the cereal pack. Jonathan Oates, Health Watch.
Unit 6, Ethics, Track 27.
According to a recent report, food manufacturers still continue to mislead consumers. Daybreak, for example, has said it has now standardised its food labels and claims that its children's cereals are healthier than ever. But when nutritional experts checked Ready to Go cereals, they found that sugar content had only been reduced by 10%. At 40%, or 12 grams, critics say Daybreak sugar content is still higher than it should be. In contrast, other brands of cereals only have 1 gram, or about 3% of sugar. Sales of Ready to Go have continued to drop, despite the company giving away thousands of its cereal packs in supermarkets last week as part of a promotional campaign. We spoke to one of their former employees, an expert nutritionist who prefers to remain anonymous.
Daybreak should have reduced its levels of sugar, salt and carbohydrates in children's cereals and increased the fibre content too. This was my recommendation, but the company told me kids wouldn't eat cereals without sugar. At the end of the day, it's a question of common sense, and kids learning to make better food choices. I mean, do you want your child to eat the equivalent of a sugary donut for breakfast?
A spokesperson for Daybreak told Health Watch that the company is donating part of its profits to a children's project in Mali. But parents back home, who just want their kids to eat a healthy breakfast, might take a bit more convincing. Jonathan Oates, Health Watch.
Working Across Cultures 2, Ethical International Business, Track 28.
Are companies more accountable than they used to be? If not, how can they become so?
In the main, companies are more accountable, particularly those that are listed on a public stock exchange. The laws nowadays require them to be more accountable, and that's on an international scale. And I think that's very healthy. Some companies have gone further and have signed up to international standards of accountability. And these tend to be run by institutions which have developed frameworks whereby the company can check its activities against these frameworks to prove to stakeholders and the outside world that they are behaving and that they are doing business in the right way. However, there are some flaws in those frameworks in that they tend to be a one-size-fits-all. So, if you're a company in the oil and gas industry, or you're a pharmaceutical company, or you're in financial services, you're faced with the same set of questions.
Right.
And that might not be entirely appropriate because, well, obviously, those are very different types of industries and activities. But there are opportunities to demonstrate accountability, and the more enlightened companies are certainly doing so. Some responsible companies are listed on the Dow Jones Sustainability Index in the States, or the FTSE for Good index that's run on the same lines in the UK.
Working across cultures 2. Ethical international business. Track 29.
How can institutions go about rebuilding trust when things go wrong?
Well, trust has to be earned, and it takes a long time for companies to earn that trust from its customers and employees. But it can be so easily lost. It can be lost by saying something misleading or wrong about your product, which then gets spread through the rumour mill. Trust can be lost by the unethical actions of a company itself or an individual within it. An employee bribing someone or being accused of corruption. But once lost, you have to work very hard at regaining it. The easiest way to regain that trust is just to be very open and honest about what went wrong and try and address the issues and get it right in the future. I'd say the key is being frank and being transparent about what you do. One sector that has recently been going through this is the defence and aerospace industry. For many years, it saw itself as an industry apart. They dealt with governments, they were selling their products to governments on behalf of governments, and they felt that they needn't be worried about corporate responsibility. With accusations that have been made against the defence industry, things have changed. One of the first companies to deal with this was BAE Systems, which appointed a special ethical committee called the Wolf Committee, which actually looked into their ethical business conduct and made recommendations for how they should behave in the future. Then the defence industry together created a code of conduct, first in Europe, called the Common Industry Standard. And then another was created at an international level, bringing together European as well as American defence and aerospace companies. And this is how the defence industry is trying to rebuild trust with the wider public. So they're now more aware of how they do business.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very positive move.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 30.
Triodos Bank recently won the Financial Times Sustainable Bank of the Year award. What exactly is sustainable banking?
When we were given the award, the people who presented it made it very clear that it was a mixture of two things, which is what we do, but also how we do it. I think in terms of what we do, as a bank, we are purely focused and always have been on supporting projects that are delivering a social, environmental, positive impact. That's what the mission is built on. So all the projects that we lend to, whether they be individuals or companies, businesses, are all doing something that in some way is delivering a positive impact socially and environmentally. In terms of how we do it, which is equally important, our business model is built on working with the real economy. So we fund ourselves with deposits from real people, mostly individuals, but some businesses. And then we lend that money to real projects that are actually doing things. We know them well, we work with them closely, we have an expertise in the various sectors to which we lend. And what that means is we're not exposed in terms of lending to some third-party removed derivative product, the risk of which is not really understood, and that goes wrong, the repercussions are enormous. All of that builds up to an understanding that the return that we seek to achieve is not just about finance, it's about the social and environmental impact as well. And so people talk about the triple bottom line, that is really important to us, and that I think is a great feature of a truly sustainable bank.
Unit 7. Finance. Track 31.
Triodos invests in over 9,500 projects. What sorts of projects are these and which are giving the best returns?
They're very exciting projects. That's one of the things I would like to say. I mean, they cover a huge range of activity. As I said earlier, they are all focused on making a difference in a social or environmental way. So they're all pursuing social and environmental aims. But if you look across the range of things that we're involved in, so in renewable energy, we're lending to some of the major renewable energy providers in the UK. In social housing, we're financing some of the big providers of social housing in the UK, such as Mencap and their subsidiaries. And then we're also involved in trading activity, which has a fair trade focus to it. Organisations like Cafe Direct, who are the sort of major hot drinks fair trade provider in the UK. So a vast range of organisations, all with that firm social and environmental focus. In terms of return, as a provider of debt funding, the return for us is merely the interest that we are paid on the loan.